You remember that game when we were kids, we would stare at each other, it was a stare down contest, and we were trying to see who would blink first, and the person that blinked first, what? They lost, right? Well, let's talk about how that pertains to real estate negotiations with 10 home buying tactics you can use today. My name is Andrew Finney, and my passion is helping you make sense of real estate. If you need help finding a top agent near you, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, my contact info is below. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. Thank you. Perhaps one of the more interesting things that you could learn in real estate negotiations or negotiations in general is to simply ask a question and let it linger. Now, consider the impact of that for a moment. When you ask a question or somebody asks you a question and then it just goes quiet, like you hear crickets chirping in the background, what does that make you want to do? It makes you want to fill the void because it's an uncomfortable silence, right? So is true whenever you're in negotiations. You throw the question out, you just let it linger and let them respond. It goes back to when we're talking about who's going to blink first. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the 10 things that you can use that help aid you in your negotiations. The first one is going into recon mode. Now, it probably comes as no surprise to you as a former United States Marine that I'm going to bring up reconnaissance, right? So you might be wondering, Andrew, what is reconnaissance exactly? In the context that we're using it today, it's talking about gathering all the available intelligence, all the available information about the property you want to purchase. So how are we going to do that? You're going to get with your trusted real estate advisor and you're going to ask them to perform a comparative market analysis on the property that you want. What's this going to do for you? The first thing that's going to do for you is identify the realistic sales price and what's trending in the area in relation to the price the seller has listed the property for. That's number one. Number two, you can also investigate the zoning, the planning, and seeing what else is going on around the area to make sure that what the future plans are from the city are in congruence to the lifestyle that you wish to enjoy. The third thing you want to do in reconnaissance is look at the crime maps and look at the crime stats to make sure that whatever's going on in that area is acceptable to you and the lifestyle you wish to enjoy. The fourth thing you want to recon are the school zones themselves to make sure that if you're planning on having kids or you have kids, those kids are going to be very well educated in the public school system or where the nearest private schools are if that's what you want to do. There's so much that goes in the reconnaissance phase. It's wise to use your trusted real estate advisor to the maximum extent possible to answer all the questions that you have as best can be determined with the information before going to contract on that property. In doing so, you'll make sure that you're buying the right house for you. The second thing you can do is investigate the house. Now, we're not talking about being like the CIA, the FBA, the NSA. Well, I guess we could be talking about that, but we're not going to quite go there when we're buying a house. What we are talking about is a home inspection. We want to investigate all the nuts and bolts of the house to ensure that it's in a good condition, or at least ways know what the condition of the maintenance is on the property, and also know if there's any major financial pitfalls on the horizon, such as maybe a roof that's going out, an HVAC that's going out, appliances that might be getting bad. You need to know these things up front so that your new dream home doesn't become a money pit nightmare. The third thing is getting ready to pounce. Now, I want you to think about one of those cartoons or one of those like nature shows when you watch the lions and the tigers creeping up on the deer or the elk or whatever they're getting ready to eat, right? A gazelle. They're creeping up on it. They're getting ready to pounce. So are you with a house. That's the mindset you have to have. You're in hunt mode. You're trying to find the new place that you're going to call home, that's going to be your kingdom, that's going to be your domain. You need to be ready to pounce before anybody else does when you've done your reconnaissance and when you get ready to go into investigation mode when you enter contract with a home inspection. When you're talking about specifically getting ready to pounce, if you know from the pictures that house is at least a 4-star and a 1 to 5-star rating scale for you, you need to be seeing that house as quickly as possible with your trusted real estate advisor. And when you get to the house, if the pictures match the reality and you're happy with the reality of the home, pounce on that house. Because if you're thinking about that, no matter what market condition you're in, whether it's a seller's market, a buyer's market, or a stabilized market, chances are there's other buyers thinking the same thing. Who's going to eat tonight? It could be you, or it might not be you, depending on how soon you're ready to pounce. This is the reason why I always suggest that you write down what's most important to you in your house. The reasons why you're buying the house is because you'll be able to approach the hunt for your new home with a clear mind and fresh perspective. The fourth tactic is counting the days on market. Now, this comes up a lot whenever I meet with home buyers here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We talk about it. They're like, hey, Andrew, I really want to get a good deal. And I said, if I had $1 for every time I heard a buyer tell me they want to get a really good deal, or $1 for every time a seller said, hey, I don't want to just give my house away, my God, I mean, I could do nothing but make videos all the time, and I would enjoy that quite a bit. I actually enjoy making these videos a lot for you. That being said, When we're talking about counting the days on market and where this goes in relation to a good deal is know your average days on market. If the average days on market in your community are 30 days and that home's been on the market for, let's say, 10 days, is that the time to try to go in and drop that price? Well, maybe. It really depends on what the comparative market analysis looks like. That's number one. But if everything is good to go with the pricing, then it's probably not going to be in your best interest to try that approach because it's probably going to backfire. So you got to be ready for the realities of that. Every time you present an offer, know that there's three possible outcomes. The seller could accept your offer, they could reject your offer, or they can negotiate the offer. So depending on the mindset of the seller and the listing agent that they're working with, that may or may not work depending on the offer amount that you go in with. Now, when we're talking about days on market, remember that we were saying, what if the average days on market in your community are 30 days? Well, what happens once we go to like day 40, day 50, day 60? What do you think is going through the seller's mind right about now? The seller's probably freaking out wondering, oh my God, am I going to be able to get rid of this house to be able to get onto where I want to go? What am I going to have to do? And likely, if they have a good trusted real estate advisor working with them to list that house, what you probably are noticing are price reductions about every 21 to 40 days on market, trying to find the right price that's going to cause a buyer to pounce on it, right? So if you want to get a better deal on a property in terms of price or in terms of terms, the devil's in the detail with the terms. What happens if you need buyer closing costs and the market isn't exactly in the right condition to provide that to you from the mindset of a seller? Because if you don't make the offer on it, another buyer's going to come swoop in and make a great offer on the property. So whenever you see the homes that have higher days on market, take a closer look at them if you're looking to get better terms or get a better price on the property. The longer a home is on the market, if the seller truly wants to sell, the seller's motivation will amp up and they want to get that home sold, which means that they'll be more open-minded towards realistic negotiations in terms of both price, concessions, also known as negotiations in your favor, in the form of perhaps getting some buyer closing costs or some other things in a contract that you need to put it together for you. Now, I do want you to consider something, and I just want to keep it 100. Buyer closing costs are called what? Buyer closing cost. So who's really responsible for this cost? You, the buyer, because the seller has what are called seller closing costs. So we got to have a clear mindset of going into a negotiation of exactly how this plays out. And we need to consider three different things. We need to consider the best outcome, the worst outcome, and the most probable outcome. When we identify this, we are definitely the lion hunting for the gazelle because we know what we're doing and we know the strategy and the tactics we're using to get you into your right home. The sixth thing is to know how to sense desperation or motivation. Now, it's important to note that a lot of sellers are going to come out and say, hey, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm completely desperate and I'm highly motivated to sell my property. If you would like to make me an offer 5 to 10% under my list price, I'm probably okay with that. Just go ahead and do that. And while we are at it, ask me to pay all of your buyer closing costs and I'll just get it done. Yeah, that situation really doesn't exist. I mean, it's a big world. It could happen, but the sheer probability and statistics that go behind it make it highly unlikely, right? It's a dream. We can have them. We all have them. But we also got to be real with ourselves when it comes time to buy a house, don't we? So having said that, when we're talking about sensing a desperation or a motivation, especially if the seller's present in the house, there are behavioral traits or there are things that people will normally put off, a vibe in the air, something that you can watch. And a skilled, trusted real estate advisor performing as your buyer agent will be able to sense that and pick up on it and report back to you after the showing. Obviously, they're probably not going to do it in the showing, right? That would be a little awkward. But at the same time, after you guys have vacated the house and gone on to the next house, or maybe in the car driving or just outside talking, then that's when the buyer agent probably would say, hey, so the seller said a couple of really interesting things. They said that they really need to get out or are in the process of moving out because they have a job relocation in another state. So they're going to be leaving one way or the other. Now, they also made the comment that they're hoping to use the equity from this property to buy the new house. Now, that may not mean they're going to accept just any old price on the house. At the same time, they're likely willing to wheel and deal a little bit because the longer they keep that house, especially when it's vacant, it's costing what? Money. They're going to have to be paying for the maintenance cost of that property. They're going to have to be paying for their mortgage. They're going to have to be paying for the utilities and the upkeep to keep it in show-ready condition, aren't they? So we want to be real about that. There's little bitty clues, and normally it comes across as like nervous behavior sometimes too. Now, it's important to be able to distinguish what a nervous behavior is just because you have somebody new in your house that you don't know, and a little bit of anxiety about that, and then be able to pick up on a complete different type of jitteriness, like you're getting ready to jump forward. And I know you know this feeling because it's happened to all of us. Think it's something that you get super pumped up and super excited about, but you can't make that move, you can't take that step until somebody else makes a decision. Maybe that's like a job promotion for you at work and you're like, I really want this, I really want this, I really want this, I really want this, but when are you guys gonna make your freaking mind up? Could you just tell me I'm gonna get the promotion already? We know I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Give me the damn promotion, right? You know the feeling. It's that feeling and all that excitement and all that nervous anxiety and anxiety that goes into it that causes that. Now, a good trusted real estate advisor will be able to sense that even if the seller's trying to hide it and be able to share that with you. How does this benefit you? It goes back into getting the best price on the home or the best terms on the home, or ideally even both. This is where it comes back to the importance of knowing why you're buying a home, why it's important to you, and what are the factors in a contract that are most significant to you moving forward with your new home. The sixth tactic is hire the best trusted real estate advisor and leave the rest. So get the best, leave the rest. It's that simple. And what you want to do in specific is that you want to be Googling that agent, checking their online presence, number one. Number two, you want to be looking at their ratings, their reviews, and also their past sales performance. So these are really important things to do, and sometimes it gets overlooked, and it completely baffles me why it gets overlooked. Consider the fact that what you're getting ready to do right now with buying a house is probably the biggest investment you're going to be making for at least majority of us in the United States. Our homes are the most expensive investment that most of us will ever make. And in most cases, we're only going to do this probably 4 to 5 times in our entire life cycle. So consider how important this is to you. Real estate done correctly will help you make money into the future over time through home appreciation and keeping your eyes open as to what might be a money pit and what may be a better option for you, right? And being honest with you about your situation to help you move forward. While a bad decision made in real estate can cost you thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars, depending on the price point of the home. Something to get real about, something to think about, and something to definitely do. And it's really easy. You Google what to do for this weekend. Why not Google your agent whenever you talk about hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on the line? Get started with that today. The seventh tactic is to be compassionate. Now, when you talk about being compassionate, you're probably thinking, well, Andrew, how does this play in the negotiation? Here's the reality of real estate negotiations or negotiations in general. And it's really interesting. And I'm going to just break this down kind of quick for you. And if you have questions about it, let me know. Or maybe I just need to shoot an entire video on just negotiation strategies and thoughts. Because this is what I learned. And working with both buyers and sellers, it's very easy for me to see at this point who knows how to negotiate and who doesn't. The people that think that it's all about them in a negotiation are very amateur and very weak negotiators. They will shut themselves down. They will have the most difficult time trying to get anything through, and then they're going to blame the world that nobody wanted to work with them. No, in reality, they just were freaking difficult to work with. Let's just call a spade a spade. And why is that? Because negotiations are a little bit of give and take. At the same time, it's about identifying what I have said so many times in this conversation today, the terms. The devil's in the details with those terms. I have worked with some buyers that need all their buyer closing costs covered in a seller's market and pulled it off. How did we pull that off whenever it's not normal for a seller to pay for buyer closing costs, especially in a hot seller's market? It's because we found out what was most important to the seller. Oftentimes, price is just one thing, but those terms count so much more. Do they want a fast closing? Do they want to shorten contingency time frames? Would they be open-minded to paying for the buyer closing costs if we went above and beyond the list price by set amount of buyer closing costs if both the buyer and seller were happy with that situation, with the understanding from the seller up front before getting a dotted line signature that the seller will need to reduce to the appraised value of the property if for some reason it doesn't work. Now, a lot of people that I've worked with as sellers will roll those dice because they instantly realize, hey, I'm definitely getting the best of everything that I can get out of this market. Not only am I getting my list price, I'm getting offered more than my list price, but the one thing I got to be prepared to do is pay the buyer closing costs even if it doesn't appraise at that amount. Now, by providing a comparative market analysis from your buyer agent to the seller in the form of their listing agent, what can happen there? It can add peace of mind and comfort to everybody. If the buyer agent is comping that property and sees that property is going to probably be worth around that ballpark number, like very close ballpark. I'm talking about maybe within $500 to $1,000 ballpark, that property could appraise that high and has the comparables to truly support it, then it's a roll of the dice to see what happens when the appraiser actually goes in. All the same, what did we discover in negotiations? We were looking at the reasons why. We were looking at what was most important to somebody else to help you get what you want. Your motivation is to get into a house more than likely. Well, if the motivation is to get into the house and you need your buyer closing cost and maybe you're on a down payment assistance program because there's no cash in the bank right now, how are we going to do that? And this is a position that a lot of Americans find themselves in, and I've had a lot of conversations with people. We gotta be smart, we gotta be cunning, and we gotta be compassionate towards the other people. Starting off a negotiation on good terms is far better. In fact, I was recently having a conversation with another one of my business colleagues over at a title company. She was sharing with me that she had called an HOA company just to verify the amount of the monthly HOA. And the person that came on the phone, I don't know where you get that from. I don't know. It's just completely absurd. Why are you asking me this? I was like, oh my God. That is so unprofessional, number one. Number two, that's rude. That was the first thing they said back when you asked nothing more than, could you please confirm the amount of the HOA? Now think about that in terms of negotiation and the thought process that people have. Who was that person after and what was going through that person's mind? Sure, everybody has a bad day, but it's all in the approach. It's all in the presentation and it's all in the finish. That's what counts in a negotiation. If we keep an open mind, if we're compassionate and we're respectful of the other party, and we try to put together terms that are both amenable to a seller and a buyer, that's a winning strategy. And that's the difference in between an amateur negotiator and a skilled negotiator when it comes to strategy. It's not always about the price. It's about getting the best terms for a prospective client, whether it's the seller or it's the buyer. People get fixated on a price. A price is just a price, but the terms is where it counts. Because consider what happens if you offered a seller their list price, but they conceded to pay 3% towards your buyer closing costs. In reality, you just got that house for 3% less because the net effect is money. The money still has to be paid for the buyer closing costs. So this is something to be real about and to be honest about. Just want you to think about this as you move forward and learning more about negotiations. The 8th tactic is to simply be professional. Treat people with respect and dignity. The respect and dignity that they want to be treated with. There's the old adage that says treat people like you want to be treated. Well, there's another new school thought that says treat people as they want to be treated, which is a completely different thing. What I find respectful, what you find respectful may be different than what someone else finds respectful. At the end of the day, that's where professionalism comes into play. Give people the respect, the dignity, and the leeway that they're looking for, and you'll find yourself setting yourself up for an extremely good negotiation. The 9th tactic is to simply stay calm. If you keep calm, cool, and collected through the negotiation process, you're going to be always logically thinking. I know your emotions are going to bubble up. You're going to get a little bit red in the face. You're going to get a little uneasy in the tummy sometimes, and that's okay. Us trusted real estate advisors that really care about you too get that way. Trust me, I feel the same thing that my buyers and my sellers feel, and I'm sitting there racking my brain because I'm the one that's in the game working for their best interest to make it happen for them. So I'm really like, okay, I got to get this for them, and this is what they're looking for. This is how we got to do it. Okay, Andrew, now that we're ready, now that we're amped up, take a breath. Just take a breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. Remain calm, cool, and collected so I can keep my eyes on what's most important for my client that I'm working with, moving forward and not losing sight of the end goal and falling into a lot of the pitfalls in a negotiation where emotions could ruin something as opposed to enhance something by being calm. So that's a very important tactic. Perhaps I should even get some shirts made. I was thinking about this the other day. We should come up with like a hashtag JTAB movement, right? So it's like hashtag JTAB. So what does it mean? Hashtag just take a breath. Seriously, when you're freaking out, no matter what you're doing in life, and it feels like it's a little bit overwhelming, hashtag JTAB, take a breath, we're happy, and then we move on, right? Speaking of moving on, let's move into the 10th tactic, which is to have fun. You are buying a house after all. You are buying the new place that you're gonna call home, your castle, your domain. It's all about you, and I want you to have fun through your home buying journey. It absolutely should be an amazing time because it is such a huge life step, and again, most of us only do this a handful of times over our entire life. Have fun with it and enjoy the process. If you adopt the different things that we talked about today, you'll find yourself enjoying a wonderful time because you're extremely well prepared. Speaking of being prepared, I give you massive kudos just for watching this video because it's going to set you up for future success. So now that we talked about some tactics, let's go into negotiating like a boss, and then let's take a look at 12 negotiation strategies you can use buying a house. Looking forward to our next conversation. We'll see you in a few.